And now we finally get to graphing. So graphing is extremely important, not only in understanding the graphs of the trig functions, but that's also used in applications. And if you understand the graphs very well, then you will be able to do those applications. And later we're going to be solving trig equations. We've solved some basic ones, but I mean some real good, fun trig equations. And understanding the graph will help with that also. So by understanding the graph, I'm talking about, as a start, take a look at one cycle of cosine. So right now, I'm just talking about cosine. I'm not talking about -5 cosine of x. So the cosine graph starts like this. It starts at a height of 1. It then goes down until it gets down to -1, and then it goes back up to +1. And all of that happens from 0 to 2 pi. When graphing, it's best to use radians, so I'm going to use radians here. Now, in the middle of the graph, that would be half of 2 pi, so that's 1 pi. And right here where it crosses the x-axis, that would be halfway between these two, so that would be pi over 2. And where it crosses the x-axis here, that's 3 pi over 2. Now, when you multiply by a 5, that means the y value equals 5 times what it used to equal. So that means that this is going to be going up to 5 instead of 1. And this is going to be going down to -5 instead of -1. So this is going to be the -5. This is going to be the +5. Now, if it didn't have the negative, I would just take this picture and basically just stretch it. So if you could take it like this and just stretch it on my screen, something's wrong with my screen, it won't stretch. Anyway, that's what we would do. But then the negative inverts it. So what used to be the top will be the bottom, and what used to be the bottom will be the top. So it's actually going to start down here at -5, and then it's going to go up to +5, and then back down to -5. And the x has no numbers changing it, so these x values do not change. This will still be 2 pi. This will be 3 pi over 2. In the middle is pi, and this is pi over 2. Now, to check the answer. So, use the graphing calculator, go to y equals, and clear out that problem. And I need -5 cosine of x. So when you go to use this button, even though it says x, t, theta, and n, let me just show you real quick. If you go to mode, there's actually 4 ways this calculator can graph. Functions, which is what we're using now. Parametric, which is near the end of the class. Polar, also near the end. And sequences or series, that's more like second semester calculus. So when you use this button that says x, t, theta, and n, x is for function, t is for parametric, polar is the theta, and sequential is n. So when you're in function mode and you use this key, it will always give you an x. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to go to the window on the calculator and have the x's go from 0 to 2 pi. So go to the window, have the x go from a minimum of 0 to a maximum of 2 pi. Now for the scale, that means when it puts these little marks down here, I want it to go by half of a pi every time. So half of a pi, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves of a pi. So pi over 2 for the scale. Then for the y values, go from -5 to +5. And for the scale on that, I'm just going to leave it as 1. And now go to the graph. And it should create this graph right here. It went through at pi over 2. that's when it's at pi, then 3 pi over 2, and then it's done. So it looks like I definitely got this one right.